Today we're going to talk about honor and violence, and why they so often go together in fiction and in fact. Now, in fiction, it's not hard to see why, because we've had cultures with both honor and violence, and those are both things that are very popular in fiction. People behaving with impeccable standards and while dishing out lots of violence and killing and stuff like that. You can make so many stories with that. But why, in fact, are there so many honorable, violent societies? Are they actually related? And how can we use these in role-playing? Well, actually, first of all, yes, they are related. And they're related because they're both trying to solve the same problem. And the problem is, well, it's a kind of prisoner's dilemma. The problem is the problem of pre-commitment. In a society without centralized authority, without mass media, if you want to survive, you personally or your group, you basically need allies and you need to frighten your enemies. And both of them require you to promise to do stuff that is not in your best interest. Hey guy, I will ally with you, or I will buy stuff from you and pay you later. In both cases, that means that if someone invades you, I have to come marching with myself, my sword, or my troops, and maybe run the risk of dying for whatever your argument is, and I really don't want to do that. And in the second case, it involved me paying you later, which again, I really don't want to do. But if I can't make my promises credible, if I can't... So since this promise is not in my interest to do it, why would anyone believe it? And if no one believes my promise, then I can't make the promise, and I can't benefit from the alliance or from the trade or whatever it is. And honor and violence are two solutions to this problem. Honor is basically, I will do what I promise, even if it is costly, no matter what the price. You can count on me. We swore an eternal alliance. I will be there for you. And of course, you can all say that, but if you do it again and again, and you build up a reputation for honorable behavior, and especially if you live in a society that has this premium for honor, then maybe you're a bit more trustworthy. People are more likely to ally with you because they know that, first of all, that if you behave dishonorably, if you betray your word, you will lose all your reputation, you will lose your benefit, and maybe your society will cast you out and hate you. Violence is pretty much the other side of the coin. That's the promise of retaliation. If you come and hurt me, or hurt one of my kin, or hurt one of my allies, I will hit you, and I will hit you so hard, even if it's very costly for me, even if it's very dangerous for me. And why will I do this? Well, precisely to stop you from hurting me in the first place. If I can credibly promise to retaliate. So again, if I live in an honorable culture with a reputation of violence, so these two things tied together, I can now promise I will help my allies, I will hurt anyone who hurts me, and so I can make credible alliances, and people are a lot less likely to come and fight me. At least that's the theory. And in practice, well, if it was perfect and everyone could perfectly deter each other, then you wouldn't get any mistakes. You wouldn't get any actual violence because everyone would be judging everything correctly. But people make mistakes, people are overconfident, and you get things like World War I, where everyone is convinced that their alliances will keep them safe, and then the alliances cause them all to go to war. So in real cultures, because people are so bad normally at judging these things and so overconfident, there's huge mechanisms to deal with these, to prevent eternal feuds of I am honorable, if you hit me, I will hit you back. They feel I hit them, they hit me, and it just goes on forever. So these feuds really can last. And as I say, most cultures have ways of dealing with it, ways of stepping down without losing face, of preventing the cycle of retaliation. Maybe you have a wise man, a wise woman, but I'm imagining more a wise man in these traditional societies, but could go either way in role-playing, who, as it goes there, will bring in their arbitration and say, this is what will happen. You will give this animal to that, you will give a hut to that, these two will marry, and all peace shall be declared. And maybe one side doesn't like the deal. Maybe both sides don't like the deal particularly. But it gives them, if this is an established culture, it gives them a way of stepping down from the cycle of retaliation with their honor and their reputation for violence intact. So, yes, if you strike at me, I will hit you back. But in our culture, we have a way of dealing with this, and I will abide by the laws of our elders, or whatever things there. There's loads of different ways that cultures around the world have solved this problem. So, how do we bring in players? Well, there's one thing that we need to realize, is that a lot of these instincts are buried deeply within us. We don't bring them to the fore because we live in a culture that uses other tools for solving these kinds of problems, that use tools like legal system, relatively impartial police forces, mass media, and other kinds of things. But they are there if we can just believe that we are in a disorganized, or your players can believe that they're in a disorganized society where retaliation can happen, or where violence will happen against those unwilling to defend themselves. A lot of the old instincts can bubble up to the surface. So how would you play it? Well, first of all, you simply have them witness things like that, feuds, disproportionate retaliation or the threat of it, things that get out of hands and that maybe then are corrected. That shows them, and unfair results that are nevertheless accepted, something that would strike us as, well, but he started it, is that he ended up rewarded. But when it plays out and everyone accepts this, and maybe have other examples of people who refuse to defend themselves, pacifists, which are very valuable and positive in our culture, but in more traditional, more honorable cultures, they are basically wearing a big sign saying, kick me. And putting a few pacifists, not necessarily say elder monks or whatever who you would expect to be pacifists, but young, strong, strapling, especially men, but that sort of group who you would expect to be violent, and they'd be pacifist, and then just have them picked on, killed, or whatever. And that sort of really drives home the value of the culture. That they're in a different culture and that plays by different rules. You can also distort the picture a bit. It would be really hard to mend a bad reputation if you don't retaliate once. Okay, the violence aspect is maybe more possible. If you don't retaliate once, then they'll try again and try again. So maybe you'll have a later opportunity to hit back, saying, I was giving you a chance, but now I'm going all out. So you can mend a reputation for weakness. A reputation for betrayal is harder to mend. Maybe you can, and by maybe you can connive something along that lines. But do not hesitate to punish players for making the wrong decision. Try not to make it a terminal punishment, but if they do not strike back when they should strike back, make them lose something. Make it encourage them. If they are sneaky and betrayals, and make them feel the consequences for that. It's especially good if you have different players and one of them benefits from keeping their word and responding with violence, and another one who is either weaker or more untrustworthy is punished for that. the scene I'm imagining is an unnecessary duel. Say something where you kill someone, your player kills someone that they really quite like, and that actually there's no real reason that they should be fighting, except that that's what you have to do. And another angle, so you can develop this in so many different angles, but where it gets quite interesting is when people, characters from different cultures clash a bit. First of all, you can have, even from two honorable cultures, honorable violent cultures, they'll have ways of doing things. As I say, local customs for resolving these. If you're ignorant of those, then things will quickly get out of hand. You won't have a way of backing down gracefully. You won't have a way of ending these feuds. You may, and since you're behaving in a culturally inappropriate way, you may just unify the entire local culture against you. But you also get the interesting things when characters are more like, well, like their players, that they come from cultures that are not cultures of honor or violence, with their ideas of police forces, of sort of fairness, dispassion, those kind of resolutions, and they are thrust. Say, vampire is a very good example. They are thrust because of their situation, because of the ancients there who live by old codes and the smallness of the size of the groups, into things where this just doesn't apply, this doesn't work. Or maybe it doesn't work entirely, or maybe it's not allowed to work. So when the two values are in conflict, and neither one of them is, say, really ideal anymore. One of them might work better than the other, but neither of them is perfect, and there's a clash and values are swaying. Especially around the ideas of violence. You can play a lot with that. You can also bring in other things, because in an honor and violence culture, things like defamation or spreading rumors about someone, it's unbelievably bad. If you are saying that this person is a weakling, if you are saying that this person betrays their promises, you are basically in the first case, you're saying, everybody go attack this guy. He won't hit back, or go attack. And then the second one, you are saying, this gal will not obey her promises. Do not ally with her. Leave her on her own. So just spreading rumors like that, which we might think as sort of a bit of character assassinations in our world, back then, that is, you are killing them, basically, if it works. So that's the reason why cultures of honor are so often connected with sort of maintaining face and bringing this violence disproportionately, not just against people who attack them, but to people who attack their reputation, because that is what their honor and their violence is all about, maintaining their reputation, allowing them to have allies, and to frighten off their enemies. Anyway, I think there's a lot of potential there. I think if you can get your players to do something that is bad by our culture, so a certain retaliation especially, and see that it is necessary, or feel that it's necessary, then I think that you'll have a sign that you've succeeded. Or even if they back out from that and go for our own values, but realizing that this is going to cost them and their friends so much. So that would be great. So a few things, maybe just logistically, give them XP for avoiding duels by using the local cultures, or by just showing themselves to be so impressive that no one touches them. Give them XP for that. Give them more XP than if they actually got involved in a fight, because getting involved in fights all the time is a failure of your reputation. It means you haven't shown that you're sufficiently good that you can frighten off the opposition. So with dealing with XP, when dealing with the interest of the adventure, maybe if they go on picking on fights all the time, have people just turn their backs on them. They are excluded. Their opportunities are closed off. If they fit in and behave in the proper way, then the opportunities are open to them. So this is blending into local customs and things like that, but it is all blended together. Those are some of my ideas. Thanks for listening.